I'm here with Brian Sanders, who is a filmmaker, a mechanical engineer, and a health tech owner. And I've got the pleasure of talking to him today about the paleo diet specifically and how you can use ancestral hacks to improve your health. So, currently working on the documentary Food Lies, what's inspired you or motivated you to dedicate yourself to creating a health food documentary? And what's it about? What's the story?
Yeah, sure. Well, yeah, I have a weird history as a mechanical engineer, and a lot of people wouldn't think that would translate into making a film, but I think that really helps set a foundation of this way of problem solving and looking at, principles from first principles and how to look at things from a scientific method and not just take anything for granted, like always question things. And so it started around when I was 30, and that's about the time when you can't eat whatever you want anymore, and you can't get away with anything. You can't eat McDonald's, whatever you did in the past. And then that also came at a time when my parents had a lot of health troubles, and it was actually a very sad story. My parents, actually my dad died of cancer, and my mom has stage 7 Alzheimer's. Mm-hmm. So she's in the last stage of Alzheimer's, and I believe these conditions are from how we live, right, in this modern day. It's like, I don't believe our ancestors got these diseases, and it has something to do with our diet and lifestyle, right? This is the things that affect our bodies the most, especially food, what we ate. And we never ate junk food, really. We had it once in a while as a treat. It was McDonald's, once a month. It's like the big trip to McDonald's. Otherwise, we cooked food at home. Yet, we had the wrong advice, I feel like, right? We were told to eat this low-fat diet and eat all the 7 to 11 servings of grains or whatever it is. And, we're eating rice and pasta at every turn. And I think that caught up with them. And, this chronic insulin, this chronic over glucose in your body caught up with them. And they never were, terribly sick. And that's a crazy thing, is you don't realize these things are kind of happening to your body. They were never overtly ill, never obese, yet they had these problems with insulin, problems with a bit of, of the gut, just getting bigger. And then, to talk about Alzheimer's, they call it type 3 diabetes. Mm-hmm. It's like, this is insulin resistance of the brain. Like, this is a problem of how we're chronically overeating sugars and processed foods and all this stuff. So even though we weren't getting fast food, all these foods we were buying to cook at home were processed foods, and we didn't really think about it. It's like, oh, get this pasta, it's low fat, it's gotta be good. But no, it's just a bunch of processed, refined grains, right? So my parents and their health conditions, so basically, I'm 31, I have no parents anymore. I'm getting a bit out of shape myself, and I knew there had to be some changes. And I stumbled on this sort of ancestral way of eating. I started getting into this way of changing my diet, and I just found, I saw such profound changes.
So what was this ancestral way of eating compared to how you were eating before?
Well, basically, I just started eating a lot of meat, fish, and eggs, and vegetables. It's very simple.
It's real foods, right?
Yeah. It's pretty simple. Just meat, fish, eggs. Like, yeah, I mean, I didn't do much. And it was crazy. It was just over the last, I was eating these breads and just like still trying to keep like a bit of this bread and like tortillas in my diet. And then once I dropped those, I went through profound changes. And my body just, I had to get new clothes, and I was always in shape, and all of a sudden I'm buying new board shorts. The board shorts won't fit. I've dropped 3 sizes. And, I had these chronic overuse injuries with my wrists it's so hard for me to work at a computer. Should I read it? Is that okay? I had these chronic overuse injuries with my wrists, and it was so hard to work at a computer, and that went away after a few months of just really getting rid of all these grains and sugars in my diet.
And that was inflammation in your joints, right?
Yes,
from the foods.
For like 8 years I had this, and I didn't even know it was from what I was eating. I got rid of it. A couple months later, it's just boom, gone. And then I remember trying to like mess around a little. It was a Super Bowl, at a Super Bowl party. I ate a bunch of foods, and then it came back. And then
so immediately you had the inflammation back from eating sugar and carbohydrates.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So we can see how Brian had just eliminated sugars, carbohydrates, processed foods, and brought in a lot of real foods such as basically animals in general and animal fats. And did you also have leafy green vegetables as well?
Yeah. I basically just, and I'd have like mushrooms and onions, and I mean, it was such a simple switch to me. It's like really all I did was I took bread and tortillas and I switched it out for grilled onions and mushrooms. Like that was my thing. I was like, okay, I still ate the eggs and the meat and whatever else I was eating. I just made that switch. And I was eating like salads, like leafy greens as well. But when you look back, it's crazy how little I did.
So it's just a few swaps with the white beige carbohydrates for an alternative plant food that's not high carbohydrate, and then you eat that with the real meats, the real fish, the real eggs that ideally have been pastured as well and organic.
Absolutely.
Did you do that then, or is that something more recent that you've incorporated into your diet?
That was more recent. I think there is kind of this journey where you go on and you try to like put them in as you go, and you do one good thing. It's like, oh, now I'm gonna focus on sleeping better, and then I'm gonna move more, and then I'm gonna do pasture raised meats. And yeah, I love that kind of progression. Don't try to do it all at once. I think it's hard for some people to like do it overnight. I get it. It's like you can't do it all.
Yeah, you just start with a few small changes, and I think that option with just swapping the white carbs out for the greens and the onion is just an easy first step, and it's so much easier than you think it's going to be.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. I want to know also about your movement as well. You're very passionate about movement and physical exercise. From an ancestral perspective, how have you applied that into your life, and what benefits have you seen compared to the chronic cardio that's generally promoted by the world as being healthy? If you say go to the gym for an hour and run really hard.
Cardio,
so yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
I was so bought into that, and I did that for so long, and I was just kind of like skinny fat. I'm running for like an hour a day, and I'm like, my arms are skinny. I kind of just had this like little belly. It was so sad. And then I realized I changed that to these kind of compound movements where I would do pull-ups, push-ups, squats. Like these are these sort of ancestral movements, right? This is just hoisting yourself up, and they were intense, and I do them till failure. I do them till I can't do them anymore, and then I try to do one more. And that I do it in a quarter of the time. I'll do this for 15 minutes, and I had such profound changes with my body composition. I got stronger and I got leaner without doing all the cardio.
And how often do you do those 15-minute intense exercises?
I definitely do like 3 to 4 times a week, and I think people could just do it twice a week. I think. I'm pretty active, and then I'll maybe play basketball another day. So I stay pretty active, but really it's 2 times a week is all you really need.
And what about during the day in terms of just keeping moving?
Yeah.
And low-level activity? How do you incorporate that into your life?
Yeah, I think that's really important. I do walks, like where we are right now. I do a 3 o'clock walk sometimes.
Yeah.
Do this 3 o'clock walk where I'll listen to a podcast and walk down here and walk back. And I have a standing desk.
Excellent. You've got one of those, yeah.
Yeah, it's the simple changes, right? It's like, at least even if you work in an office and you can't get access to a standing desk, like I used to maybe just drink a lot of water. It's like every 45 minutes I just get up and get a cup of water and have like a small cup of water. So it's like I gotta keep getting it up, keep getting up to get it.
Just keeping mobile throughout the whole day, yeah. and getting your blood flowing. Yeah, that is brilliant. That you're only spending about an hour and 15 minutes a week on your high intensity or resistance training workouts, and then keeping physically mobile during the day and moving around, that low level activity, which is actually very similar to what our ancestors would have done. Sometimes they would have been building shelters, hunting, pulling materials around, and then the rest of the time they would be gathering, cooking food, but they'd always be on their feet moving around, and then you don't get inflammation build up, and you're just constantly mobile rather than suddenly pushing yourself and then sitting on your bum all day and getting back pain.
And being miserable on a treadmill, and then you're just like off, on, it's just not.
You're not enjoying anything. And then if you can incorporate the standing desk, or at least, a hack, just getting a small glass of water every day, then you're going to move around a lot more throughout the day. So that's really useful, really, really useful.
And yeah, I like to say eat densely, move intensely.
Explain that. It's just brilliant.
Eat densely,
I love
move
it.
intensely.
Yeah.
So people talk about eat less, move more. That means nothing to. That's just like telling someone make more money and spend less. Like, what does that mean? Everyone kind of knows that's how you can make money or save money, but it doesn't help anyone. So eat less, move more is stupid. I've never counted calories. I don't count macros. Maybe some people should. You know, maybe it helps them. But I think it's great to eat intuitively. And how you do that is you eat densely, which is eat nutrient-dense foods. So these are the foods with bioavailable nutrition. This is the animal foods. This is like liver, oysters, fish, fatty fish, you know, eggs, foods like that. And you know, some of these good vegetables and fungus, mushrooms, all these type of things have great nutrition. And just don't eat the things that have a poor nutrient density, right? Like, I'm not saying anti-carbohydrate, but they don't have a lot of nutrition when you look at how many calories they have or how much energy they contain. So if you're eating densely, you're certainly not eating refined grains, sugars, vegetable oils, stuff like that. These modern foods with no nutritional value. But and maybe you're eating less, you know, sweet potatoes. So that could be good for some people. Some people are metabolically damaged. Maybe they shouldn't be eating sweet potatoes. But when you eat for nutrient density, you end up eating meat, fish, eggs, and vegetables. Oh, and then move intensely part. Yeah. Move intensely. Yeah. Move intensely means brief, intense exercise. So it's a low-level exercise throughout the day, which is a given. It should be a given. And then move intensely. Let's lift hard. Let's push yourself. Let's sprint. Let's squat. Let's pull-ups.
That's just a fantastic formula, and it's classic from an engineer to come up with a formula for that. But it is eat nutrient-dense foods that are full of, have a micronutrient diversity, fats, like complete proteins, and a very small amount of carbohydrate. And if you take those foods instead of having the white grains, then you're not having the food that is a cheap, convenient, with a long shelf life that we've discussed, and has no nutrient value for your body. It's not just empty calories, but they're actually calories that are damaging because they cause inflammation, like the joint pain that you had. And you just feel better and cleaner and more energized when you're on healthy fats, which is much more closer to a real human diet.
I absolutely believe that. Once I figured this out, I realized this is the way to go. I didn't come at it like, oh, I just like bought into this like ancestral way of eating just out of nowhere. It's like I'm making this film, I'm trying to explore this from all sides. And I came at it like scientifically, like this engineering approach. It's like, let's look at why did our ancestors, did they really live better than us? And I found out they did. It's like they didn't die at 35. That's just a myth. So it's like when I look at this way, we can look at modern science, and we know more about biochemistry and how food works in our bodies, and we know more about exercise science and all these different things that we've figured out. I figured out by looking at all sides of this. I'm looking at veganism, I'll look at vegetarian diets, I'll look at all different types of diets, and it kind of all converged around this ancestral way of eating, which I didn't even necessarily call an ancestral way of eating, and it just kind of came together as that. And then I was like, oh, of course, well, this is just an ancestral way of eating. It all makes sense, it lines up. The modern science confirms it. We have new studies showing this information. We're proving that this saturated fat is not bad for you. They've lifted the restriction of saturated fat, yet no one's talking about it. You know, it's actually off the guidelines, a cap of saturated fat. No one's talking about this. So we're kind of just, went astray for the past 50 years. But if you look at, maybe just don't look at this anomaly of, say, the last 50 to 60 years, we actually always did know what to eat, right? Even our grandparents knew what to eat. They were eating real butter, they weren't eating margarine, they were eating real animal foods and fats, and they weren't eating, they were skeptical of all these new foods, right? I don't think they really bought on to, like, why is this replacement for sugar or replacement for fat going to be healthier than the fat that comes from the land?
The real thing is like replacing wood with plastic, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, but how do you think these fake foods got into our diet in the first place?
Well, I mean, it's a whole story. That's what the film's all about. I mean, I think that it wasn't...
In summary, in classic summary.
No, exactly. Yeah. No, it's not a conspiracy. A lot of people try to do this conspiracy theory of like, oh my God, there's these evil corporations that are like injecting food and they want us to be sick. No, it's pretty obvious what happens. We made some mistakes in science. We had this idea that fat, you eat fat, it makes you fat, right? It's like you eat cholesterol, there's cholesterol in our arteries, they cut people open, there's like, oh, what is this waxy stuff in the arteries? It makes sense. They made mistakes. We didn't have all the scientific equipment, we didn't have all the tools we have now. So we made some mistakes, in the 50s and 60s, we jumped to a conclusion. We opened the door to all these processed food industries by demonizing fat. So that means, oh, well, fat is bad, then what else are you gonna eat? So carbohydrates must be good. And then we started thinking, oh, well, whole grains must be good. And so it kind of just opened up this pathway. So if you're not gonna have foods with fat in it, then it doesn't taste good, so you have to add sugar. So now we have all these foods, so they're just stuffing in sugar, they're stuffing in these carbohydrates. It's cheap, it has a long shelf life, they're making a ton of money, and it's really just companies trying to make money. Right?
And they're addictive as well.
And they're addictive.
They're addictive as well, so you eat a lot more than you otherwise would, which again makes the calorie restriction very difficult to do if that's the way that you want to maintain or lose weight, because you're addicted to food and you can't stop eating it. And the flavor combinations as well that you were talking about that we wouldn't have had ancestrally.
These food scientists.
Tell us about that. Yeah.
There's food scientists developing these foods specifically to make you want to eat more. Like this does not happen in nature. Imagine people getting paid 6 figures to try to make you overeat, and that's what's happening. So it's no wonder. So what's really interesting is people just think that for some reason they think these food companies have their best interests in mind. Their health is the least of their concerns. They market foods as healthy. They have no concern over your health. They're trying to make money, right? So they could say it's healthy, but really it's just something that they've developed to make you eat more and want it more and buy it again. And it's using your like sort of wiring, your basic human wiring of I want calories, I want nutrients, and they're tricking you with fake flavors to think that you're getting them, but you're not.
And how do these fake flavors work to get people to eat more? So what kind of flavors are they combining that you wouldn't find naturally in nature?
Yeah.
That make things so addictive?
Well, yeah, I mean, usually your fat and carbohydrates don't come together in nature. The only times they come together is in mother's milk, which is specifically designed to make people grow bigger. And maybe acorns, and acorns are what squirrels eat to fatten up for winter. So fat and carbs usually don't come together in nature. So usually food is high in carbs, high in fat. They're just never both. So eating seasonally makes sense, right? We had times when we wanted to maybe gain a little more fat for the winter, and then so if you're adding fat, salt, sugar, these spices, anything together in these combos, this is not found in nature. It's just our brains aren't ready for them, and it tricks us.
Yeah, it's the overstimulation of the palate, isn't it? Especially with things like crisps, if they're sweet and salty, and it's just addictive, and they're carbs, so that sugar, and you don't know when to stop. And it's
They're geniuses. They got us.
Amazing. Yeah. Great for getting people really fat.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's really confusing because we've been told not to eat fat and to eat carbs. Now we're relearning what everyone knew until 60 years ago, that fat is good for us and we need it because we can't produce our own fat, but we can produce glucose. There's also quite a big plant-based movement, the veganism and the vegetarianism, particularly from the beginning of this year. Is that really better for the environment? And how does that compare with eating grass-fed, humanely raised animals? What do you think? Is it better for the environment to be vegan and for your health? Is it natural to be vegetarian? Is that an ancestral diet?
No, I don't think so. Sometimes we may have been forced to be eating more plant foods, but that was in times of starvation, and our body has this secondary metabolism to be able to eat a lot of starch, and maybe if we had very low protein, very low fat, and we could eat a lot of starch and be okay and not get heart disease and all these things we're seeing today. But that's not our natural way. Our natural way has always been to get the animal foods or high fat foods or berries, nuts, like things that do have high fat. And I think that is our natural way to be. Our metabolism runs better on a fat-based metabolism. Maybe we don't always have to be, fat-based metabolism, always in ketosis 24/7, but we at least need to be able to access that type of fuel.
Yeah, and to have the flexibility and go with the
yes.
seasons as well, because in the summer you can eat a bit more fruit, although the fruit we eat today is nothing like the fruit our ancestors would have eaten.
I'm going to put that in the film too. It's nothing. It's like before these apples, they were small, they were sour. We've developed all these fruits to be pure sugar, less nutrients. Again, they don't have your health in mind. They're trying to sell a product, the shelf life. How long is this? We've bred apples to last on the shelf for weeks and in transport. how to have the more sugar, how to be tastier. It has nothing to do with nutrients. In the past, it was all based on good soil and how nutrient dense something was, and we got these cues of the flavors because they were true flavors of giving us signals of the nutrients that were in them. So you asked about the environment though. So a lot of these people will try to say, oh, well, going plant-based, that's got to be better because why are we feeding all this plant matter to a cow and then we're eating the cow? Why don't we cut out the middleman? And it makes sense, you know, to this top level, you're like, huh, okay, yeah, I get it. Like there's all these arguments at the very top level that seem to make sense. It's like killing is bad. So let's just not eat any animals because killing's bad. Well, there's way more to the story. Nature doesn't work like that. There's a circle of life. For something to live, something has to die. There's a circle of life for a reason. It's a harmonious cycle. Nature is a miracle, right? So we can talk about ethics. That's a whole nother story. But if you want to talk about nutritionally and for the environment, again, this ancestral way of eating is superior. I've looked at it for years, trying to study it for the film, really trying to get to the bottom of it, and it does make sense. So nutritionally, we've talked about that a lot. I just believe that these animal foods have high bioavailable nutrients. They have high bioavailable proteins, complete proteins. We talk about the environment. So for plants to grow, they need nitrogen. They need these nutrients for a healthy soil. So for all of history, we've gotten these nutrients from animals. The fertilizer, it's again, perfect circle. Okay, now we come in and we do this monocropping. We're clearing out entire populations, entire ecosystems. All the animals are wiped out and we're trying to grow one plant. And these vegetarian, vegan people are trying to tell you that that's natural, that that's better somehow. Okay, what about, so you're just displacing all these animals, you're killing animals, you're killing tons of small insects even, then harvesting the animals. There's small ground nesting birds dying, baby deer, baby mice, all kinds of things are dying from these tractors, plowing these plants. There's so much death going on in monocropping. It's insane to think that that's right for us. Okay, then we're talking about, oh, let's do small, let's just eat plants out of our garden. All right, how does this soil, how do you get the nitrogen in the soil? How do you get the nutrients from the soil? You're gonna need to get fossil fuel fertilizer. If you're not using animal fertilizer, like we always did, where we had plants and animals growing together and it's harmonious cycle, we're gonna get fossil fuel. So now we have to transport all this fake fertilizer and get fossil fuels out of the ground. And that's a real problem. So what these activists do, these anti-meat activists do, is they have like smoke screens or these red herrings. They try to distract people from the real problem, which is fossil fuels. Like burning of fossil fuels is the real problem. Like that's what's creating all of this greenhouse gases, all this global warming, whatever is happening is because of fossil fuels. It's not because of some cows. We have less ruminants. Ruminants are these cows, these four-legged animals that eat grass. And we have less ruminants now than we did before. We had millions, tens of millions of bison roaming the North American plains. We had megafauna all over Europe and all over the world beforehand. Giant animals, herbivores, that were producing whatever methane they would. But it's part of a natural process. It doesn't make any sense that the animals are the problem. I mean, yes, we have some poor practices if we're using feedlots that, like group them in a really unnatural way and they're not on the grass. But again, they're actually all animals, all cows are actually on grass for 2/3 of their life. Not a lot of people know that all cows are raised on grass for 2/3 of their life, and then most of them are put in a food lot, and some of them continue off to be grass finished. But it's not like these animals are stuck in a cage their whole life. So that's just a misconception. But what I'd like to see is all animals to be grass finished and never go to a feedlot, of course. So let me think of it. Yeah.
Would you say that cows that have been pastured or grass-fed have a higher nutrient density in their meat? Is the meat better for you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Than the feedlot cows?
Yes.
And the same with eggs as well?
Exactly. I think eggs actually have more of a better nutrient profile. But the grass-fed meat, so grass-fed beef has a greater omega-3 to omega-6 ratio. So that's a whole nother story, but we want a more equal omega-3 to omega-6 ratio. That's how we've lived for all of history. Now we're at like 20, 30, 100 times the amount of omega-6s to omega-3s, which is bad. It's all these seed oils and all these vegetable oils pumped in our system. But so, and especially an egg that a chicken that's running around on pasture eating what it's supposed to, eating the grubs and little things, like the nutrient profile of the egg is so much better. And you can see it in the yolk. It's this bright orange, like really deep yellow yolk. And yes.
Yeah, compared to the ones that are pale yellow.
It's just, yeah, you can just tell there's just no nutrient value in there.
Well, I'd like to know, and I think some of our viewers as well, what does a day in kind of ancestral diet look like for you? So breakfast, lunch and dinner.
Okay.
What constitutes an ancestral diet?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I haven't eaten breakfast in 2 years, so certainly not breakfast.
No breakfast.
No breakfast. That's the beauty of it is you're free from food. I sort of have a food addiction myself in a way. I feel like everyone has some sort of energy around food. It's like, you know, it's always a problem. It's like I eat too much, or I love this. And with this ancestral approach, I found I get to eat the foods that I enjoy, and I eat till I'm full, and then I don't eat again until I'm hungry. It's amazing. So I eat a great meal around 1 p.m. of maybe a grass-finished ribeye steak and some kimchi, maybe some sauerkraut, or maybe a side salad, something like that. And then I'm full, and I work all day. You know, I do the rest of my day. I work out around 7 p.m. and then I eat again. I eat around 7:30, 8 p.m. Yeah, so then for dinner, I have some salmon, I have sardines. Like, I like sardines, it's handy. You can keep them in, you just pop them open, you get all these healthy omega-3s. I'll eat eggs, I'll eat just any kind of meat, fish, eggs, and vegetable. It's so simple.
So it's a simple formula. You've got that the protein, a fatty protein ideally, that's ideally pastured, wild caught, and then the greens as well.
It's so simple.
Greens.
I mean, you don't even need a lot of ingredients. Like, people are spending all this time, they think, oh, that's expensive. Or people say, oh, well, the paleo diet's so expensive. You know, you're always buying these expensive ingredients. Maybe it costs a little more for the good meat and the good wild-caught fish, but I'm not buying like 10 ingredients to try to make something ridiculous, some concoction. I'm just eating a vegetable. Like, I just have like a zucchini, and I have butter, and I have a fish. Like, that's it. I have like 3 ingredients. Like, what else do you need? So salt? Like, that's all you need.
It's that easy. And then you end up saving money if you're skipping breakfast and you don't need snacks because you don't get hungry between meals.
Absolutely.
So you save a ton of money on snacks.
Time, money.
Food. You've got more time to focus on what you want to do and what you want to achieve, like making a documentary and running a tech business as well. So you've got, it's quite liberating.
Absolutely. It's kind of a no-brainer. Like, once you understand this way of eating, you never want to go back, and you kind of just want to tell the world, you're like, eat like this, figure it out. Like, it's so delicious. I feel like I'm cheating at life, because it's like I'm eating delicious foods, and I'm getting healthier, I'm getting stronger, I have endless energy. I'm like doing things I never thought I'd do. I just did a pentathlon at age 36. You know, it's like, I can compete at a high level against people around the world just because I changed the way I ate.
If you could tell people to change just one thing in their life that would have a huge impact on their health, what would it be?
I tell people that switching like 1 or 2 things, there's such a power in just making a small difference in what you eat. We talked about just swapping 1 for 1. I mean, just all I did was swap the bread for some grilled mushrooms and onions. So that one thing, it's like you need to just change your idea of what's delicious, because there's so many delicious foods out there that are so simple. It's just these meat, fish, and eggs, these satisfying foods that you can fill your day with, and you're never gonna feel like you're missing out if you just kind of make this simple switch in your brain that I can, if I focus on health, it can be nutritious. We have this whole idea, I'm going on forever, but maybe you can take something out of here. But if you realize that health doesn't have to equal misery, health does not have to equal struggle and willpower. Health can equal delicious foods. You just need to figure that out and know about food, and just know what's nutritious and delicious at the same time. And it happens to be foods that are great and most people like.
Yeah, that's a wonderful thing to close on. Absolutely nutritious and delicious food.
Yeah.
That nourishes you rather than depleting your energy. Thank you so much for your time, Brian. It's been an absolute pleasure. Where can people find you and follow what you do, and find the documentary?
Yeah,
as
sure.
well?
Food Lies. Food Lies is my life. Foodlies.org. We're making the film. We need people to help pre-order and help fund it. On sapien.org is where it all is. Sapien.org has the health technology we're building, my podcast, my grass-finished meat company. It's all there.
And your social media?
Food Lies. Just search Food Lies.
At Food Lies.
At
All right,
Food Lies.
you've got it.
Food
Keep
Lies.
following
Yeah.
Food Lies. All right, thank you very much.